Okay, everyone, we are back for the last hour of the first day. Thank you all for hanging in there. Really appreciate you being here. And I certainly appreciate Patricia being here as well, my colleague with the National Institute for Social Media. Patricia, I will let you introduce yourself and your wonderful qualifications and insights and thinking and your presentation. And I'll be here if you need me. We've got until 9 o'clock, basically. You're muted. The mute monster's gotten us all tonight.
My goodness. You would think I've never done this before. There we go.
All right. Take it away.
Thanks so much. It's nice meeting everybody. I'll give you a really brief introduction to who I am. I've been a marketer for a very long time. I've been in social media, especially since like before it was even a thing, like back when brands like bought fans, like that's how long I've been doing this. I'm currently the VP of marketing for an education and language company. And I serve as the chairwoman of the board for the National Institute for Social Media. So I spent a lot of time in this world. I am not a graphic designer by any stretch of the imagination, but marketing teams usually run lean, and not all of us are lucky to have a full-time graphic designer. So the art of social media is literally an art form. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. Let's get into it. The art of social media design is what I titled this, because it's definitely an art form. So I don't think I really need to like reiterate this. I think it's pretty obvious, but the importance of good design is critical to social media engagement, right? Like it's the first thing that people see well before that they see the words on an update. So it's critical to engagement. Creating beautiful graphics, choosing appealing colors and fonts, optimizing for each platform increases eyeballs on your content. And that's the whole point of social media, right? We want to make sure that people are actually doing something if you're putting all of the work into getting that content out there. So let's talk about best practices a little bit. So I think this kind of goes without saying, but video is not going anywhere anytime soon. It is a huge driver of ROI. Actually, last week, HubSpot put out their state of social media. I should have put the link in here, but I can send it out after this if you have a chance to look at it. HubSpot put out this really amazing report about like the state of social media, and short form video, to no one's surprise, is obviously like #1 ROI driver as far as content goes in 2023. Instagram and Meta put out this their state of the union essentially that says they're putting a significant more emphasis on reels, and we don't need to talk about TikTok, but even YouTube Shorts is kind of getting like a toe in the ring as far as content goes. But brand marketers are certainly doubling down on video because it's engaging. I don't think we need to, I think this is pretty obvious too, but emojis are obviously still relevant and used in nuanced ways as long as they're brand appropriate. Memes are not for every brand. They are great as a flash in the pan, but not every brand can pull off a meme. But I think like it doesn't really matter what you use, whether it's an emoji or a meme or a video. Being relatable is way more important than being relatable is more important than being on brand. But going for the biggest ROI, right? Like you got to make the juice worth the squeeze. So having relatable, trendy when appropriate, educational and informational, dear Lord, interactive like polls and Q&As, something that's funny. And then at the bottom of the totem pole, unfortunately, is brand values. A lesson that I learned early in my career is nobody cares about your business more than you care about your business. So the company holidays and milestones may seem like really important brand work, but not that many people care. So this is a huge one, right? Defining your brand aesthetic. This is the baseline foundation of every design choice that goes out on social. And developing a consistent color palette, typography, and image style that aligns with your brand values and resonates with your target audience. Like I said earlier, I work in education marketing. So what works for me and my audience, learners and expats and our audience may not work for a CPG brand, for example. It's really knowing who your audience is and what they want to see on social that would guide some of your design choices. Size matters. I think this is pretty straightforward, but I put this in here for posterity's sake, right? The set it and forget it kind of like create one social image for all networks doesn't really work because they all require different things. They are literally not one size fits all. So I put some specs here for reference sake, but there are a lot of marketers who would tell you just to create a square, a la, LinkedIn. So it works for all three. But if you're going to create social content, why not just go the extra mile and create something different for every network? And to that point, choose the right platform. Design graphics need to be specific for wherever you're posting them. Not only does every platform have different size requirements, but it's also a vastly different audience. And I kind of go into a little bit of a case study later in my presentation about how different brands are using social, and I'll make a point about that. So let's talk about Instagram, especially as design goes, because it's #1 for a reason. And if you are active on social, you may have heard of a little controversy between Mark Zuckerberg and TikTok, but Instagram is #1 social platform by far as marketing goes. And even with the Meta TikTok controversy, it's not really going anywhere anytime soon. Despite the chokehold TikTok has on Gen Z, Insta still reigns supreme. And according to HubSpot, Instagram is the most invested in platform by marketers in 2022 and well into 2023 as well. And it's really because of the user-generated content on Insta seen alongside branded content. It's really the most authentic, not perfectly curated place. You could, the last couple of years, you've really seen a shift from this beautiful curated photography to really kind of like grainy and authentic content that is doing really well because people want honesty on social. These are some really great examples from a couple of different Instagram pages that I think do really well. This top left references that HubSpot study that I was talking about earlier, of what they are saying that the best Instagram brands have in common. They publish content related to daily life, interests, or hobbies. Again, the overly like corporate curated click-through content doesn't do that great on Instagram, mostly because Facebook and Instagram prefer that people don't leave their site, right? So they're going to promote content that is visually appealing, that keeps people on their platform as long as possible, as opposed to like a brand saying, read the blog and click through here or swipe up or whatever. They want people to engage as much as possible on their actual platform. 17% of marketers said that they use Instagram to offer discounts of product giveaways. 22% said they entertain with humorous or attention-grabbing content, which is a no-brainer. And 23% of brands said they publish valuable images, videos, stories, or live content related to people's industries or careers. On the top right, I took a screenshot of this Instagram page called The Every Mom. And they share content about handling kids and diversity and tips and tricks on how to make mealtime more appealing. And it's obviously they have honed in on their niche audience very, very well. So they know, you can tell probably by the aesthetic, right? It's, pink and very well curated for a millennial mom. And they really curated their content very perfectly to that. You can see like the image tiles for their content at the top, and then their actual tiled images. They just do a really great job of like knowing who their audience is and creating content that visually appeals to that. And the kind of opposite end of this brand Instagram is Chipotle, where how many photos of burritos could they, post? And they made a very conscious decision to use not just food videos in their design, especially on Instagram. They obviously have the occasional food photo because it's a food company, but they have really focused their Instagram strategy on showing their personality, and that's like reflected on all of their design choices. This bottom image, like making fun of people not being able to pronounce Chipotle, so they kind of like ran with that. A couple of tips about Instagram. Eye-catching is key, right? Like if you stop and think about what makes you stop scrolling and read it and actually read a caption, that's a brand's goal too, right? Every brand I've ever consulted with on Instagram, their goal is to stop the scroll, not necessarily get someone to take action. So content should be alluring paired with an informative caption, but really the graphic design part of it is what people stop and resonate with first and foremost. Reels are Instagram's latest currency, so focusing on captivating video and images is crucial. Like I said earlier, Meta wants people to spend more time on their platform than they do off of it. So taking their advice and posting more reels is what's going to get your brand more attention, especially since they moved from chronological scrolling to their algorithm that doesn't make a ton of sense. But the more that you get people to engage on your post, and then especially your graphic design is good enough to get them to visit your profile, then your feed their feed will reflect their choices a little bit more. Excuse me. Be bold and use candid photos instead of perfectly curated images. People want to see authenticity first and foremost. Let's talk about Facebook, because people still use it like a lot. 2.95 billion monthly active users are on Facebook, which is mind-boggling to me. But yeah, it's still very much a thing. While I was creating this presentation, I honestly can't think of a marketer who uses Facebook in a content distribution way anymore. It's great for community building, but I really couldn't find any like wonderful show-stopping design examples. And I think that's intentional, actually. So while I was doing research, Facebook likes to push their own design preferences. So let's go straight to the source. They are more likely to show your content if you use the recommended aspect ratio for each placement. High-res images should seem very obvious. They actually want you to show your brand or logo because there are so many fake pages on Facebook. They want people to know for sure that the stuff that they're sharing and engaging with is from an actual brand. So they want your logo to be in the forefront. And they favor content that shows people using your product or service. So again, more of that user-generated content does really well on Facebook. They prefer text overlays. They like a couple of years ago, you know how Facebook came up with that, like you can put like an image behind your update. Well, they pretty much want the same thing for brands, but in a more well-designed way. So text overlays in front of a photo has a favorable response with Facebook. They also want people to focus on their message. So less content in the update, more content in the photo itself, because that's what people share and that's what people see first and foremost, as opposed to reading anything. They see the photo or the image before anything else. And they also really want people to use filters. Surprisingly, I was actually really shocked when I read this, and I will drop the link in here too, but they love when people use Facebook filters and prefer that content and share it more on a feed than with a perfectly curated image. I pulled some really good examples actually of brands that are thoughtfully using Facebook, because I didn't really think it existed anymore, but it does. It really does. So Starbucks is an early adopter on Facebook, and they've been really strategic about what they share on their page, and it is so quickly changing, which I think their audience obviously really resonates with. It comes a little bit of polish, but it's certainly mixed with that user-generated content too. Starbucks does a really great job of also highlighting their international locations too. So, well, maybe like one hub for content, they do a really great job of highlighting where everybody else is in the world and where their locations are internationally. But you can see like they put a really strategic focus on alluring design, right? Like it is visual content because they run contests and seasonal products, highlight job openings. They are very intentional about their design choices. In the middle, you can see like they pulled a user photo, but her nails match the flowers and the flowers match the cup. And it's a very, beautifully curated photo that they hopefully compensated that creator for, but they do a really great job of reposting user-generated content. I called out emojis, especially earlier in this, and honestly, nobody does it better than Adobe. I can't even imagine how long it took somebody, I hope it wasn't a poor intern, to make these images, but an emoji is worth 1,000 words. And they do, I mean, as far as Facebook content goes, I think this is pretty good. Another one that does really great, this is a very beautiful curated photo. Stella and Dot is I think it's an MLM, but it's a jewelry company. And remember a couple of years ago when flat lays are like a really big thing? They kind of brought this back a little bit last summer, but it kind of works because, the colors are really appealing and it was seasonally appropriate. Another one that I love because I have 2 children is EV lunchboxes, because not only do they focus on their actual product and, obviously they're selling lunchboxes, right? But this is a beautiful photo and they give like, user generated content as well. They give credit to the creator of this, but it's a really great showcase of like what to put in your children's lunchboxes. And if you were a mom scrolling through your social feed, this would certainly, stop your scroll. Let's talk about LinkedIn, because this is a totally different beast than Instagram and Facebook. I also very intentionally left TikTok out of this because it's like the wild, wild west. There is no design. There are no design choices on TikTok. If that's what you're going, you shouldn't even be going for design choices on TikTok. So I left it out purposely because of that. Yeah, nobody should be making design choices on TikTok if it's not authentic. You get sniffed out pretty quickly. So I focused on the main 3 that most marketers would put money behind, quite frankly, money and time and resources. So LinkedIn loves to auto-populate images from the content you're sharing, and it's really terrible. So if you're sharing a blog or a news article or whatever, LinkedIn will pull whatever image is included in that piece of content. And it usually looks awful, but you could delete it. Luckily, you can delete it and upload your own image. And you absolutely should take that opportunity, because consistency is key. And obviously your brand should be, front and center on LinkedIn. And then going back to what I said earlier about like brand colors and fonts and typography, that is way more important on LinkedIn than it is on Facebook, because the user generated content is such a small piece. You don't really get to use, perfectly curated pieces of content from actual users. But it's a great time to showcase case studies, quotes, and other personalized content that your brand followers would actually care about. I showed a couple I took a couple of screenshots from really great brands who use LinkedIn thoughtfully. And I want to read a little bit of a quote from the Coca-Cola team, because they obviously have a very, unbelievable international presence on Instagram and Facebook, but their LinkedIn presence is very well curated too. And they have a graphic designer, obviously, and their co-editor made a comment about how LinkedIn is a huge traffic driver for them. And specifically because it's a different audience, right? Like people aren't looking for Coca-Cola products on LinkedIn, but they are looking for jobs and they are looking for brand guidance or inspiration. And the co-editor of Coca-Cola made a comment about how LinkedIn, the click-through rates on LinkedIn stories are way higher on LinkedIn for them than they are on Twitter or Instagram, and even Facebook, because they are so intentional with their design choices. And they keep their professional audience in mind. And that was really important to them to like differentiate their content strategy between social channels, because they knew like people are coming here for jobs and you know, career advice. So they wanted to, you know, keep it a little bit more professionally curated. The examples that I showed on the rest of this page pretty much follow the same strategy, right? Like you wouldn't go to LinkedIn to book a hotel, but you would go to the Four Seasons LinkedIn page to see if they were hiring or having, you know, if they had a career that was interesting to you, or they were sharing content that related to your industry. And they were very intentional to not have beautiful design choices. And I took a screenshot of this horse, little girl on a horse, because they leaned really heavily into like authentic, which is like not perfectly curated images, which is kind of a bold choice for some, you know, a brand that is perfectly polished and curated like the Four Seasons. But you can see that it does really well. Like it did great. Like caption this, the most creative caption wins infinite bragging rights. Stay tuned, we'll announce the true caption and winner in a few hours. That's kind of a weird choice for LinkedIn, but obviously it resonated really well with their audience. Another brand that I think does really well on LinkedIn is L'Oreal, because they have so many showcase pages and it's so many different brands under one brand umbrella. They have a little bit more freedom to use design in a pretty eye-catching way. So if you have a chance to check out their LinkedIn, it's not as boring as most LinkedIn pages are. Here are some pretty straightforward tips and tricks about creating engaging social media graphics, high quality, eye-catching images that are relevant to your brand or message. I think that is the most obvious thing in the world, but I think a lot of marketers forget that. If you're batching content, use different graphics for every social channel. And honestly, if you think it's boring, so does your audience. Because there's been plenty of times where I've been asked as, you know, as a marketing team of one, like, can you just make sure this gets out there? And then like, if I don't want to read it, I guarantee you nobody else does either. So eye-catching is, even if it takes a couple extra minutes, it's definitely worth it. The only platform that actually prefers text overlays is Facebook, but otherwise keep text minimal and easy to read with a clear message. Because, you know, a screenshot is forever. Experiment with colors, typography, and layout to make your graphics stand out. If your whole feed looks like one thing, again, if it's not interesting to you, it's probably not interesting to anybody else. I put here a couple of great, mostly free resources. If you are on a lean marketing team, obviously Canva can't be beat. Their free option is unbelievable for creating social posts and even scheduling straight from the tool. It's great. Adobe Spark has a really great free product to create graphics, web pages, and videos in one place. I think they have a paid option too. PictoChart is really great if you're creating infographics, presentations, and social media graphics. There are a million. I could have probably made like 15 slides on this. There are a million free options. I definitely think that, you know, having a graphic designer on staff is wonderful and super helpful, but not necessary in this day and age, especially if you're on, you know, if you had marketing resources to allocate in one way or the other. I don't think everybody's a graphic designer, but I think you could certainly, you know, make some pretty good design choices with a lean budget and time. That's it for me. Here's my LinkedIn profile if you guys want to chat and answer questions. That went way faster than I thought it was going to.
All right, I'm back. Just
went
in the
really
nick of
fast.
time too, I think.
Yeah. It was very quick.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Patricia, for that. Really appreciate it. Any questions? You were so thorough and comprehensive.
I'm sure that's it.
Yeah. What do you folks think? Still with us?
It's late.
Yeah. It's been a long 2.5 hours.
I can appreciate that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Patricia, so much for this awesome presentation. I really appreciate it. Excuse me. I love everything that you said, and especially blending the elements of design with the considerations of social media. Especially considering where those two things are going to go in the future, where video is applied. It's so critical that designers really get involved in social media marketing and all of the work that is within that. I mean, I do both. I'm a designer, but I manage social media accounts. It's not a terrible stretch, especially if you're making graphics for them, like I do. So this was helpful. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Okay, so if you have any questions for Patricia, you can reach out to her on LinkedIn. Otherwise, thanks again. We got some comments here. Thank you. Love the examples. Also appreciate that you focused on the 3 most used platforms, which, yeah, absolutely. Why waste your time on the ones that don't perform, right?
Yes.
And in higher ed, in education, rather, we have to focus seemingly on all of the platforms. So
I get it, especially in a shoestring budget. With a lean team and a small budget, focusing your efforts on what matters is pretty important.
The world on a shoestring budget with a deadline of yesterday.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. All right, cool. Well, that's as good of a place to end it. Thank you again, Patricia. Thank you all for hanging in there. And please stay tuned to your emails for updates and Zoom links, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for having